I am Mary Carol Sheffield, the Paulding County Extension Coordinator and Agent for Agriculture and Natural Resources, and I'm really glad you all are joining us today. Since the COVID-19 pandemic began, it seems like more people are spending a lot of time outdoors in their yards and taking on projects to learn more about gardening and making improvements around their home. So I'm excited to share some helpful information for your landscape projects, and I'm going to be tackling the topic of trees. When you are thinking about trees in your landscape, you want to think about making a plan. If you have existing trees in your landscape, understanding the needs of trees and the needs of other parts of your landscape can help you create a functional and beautiful yard that includes many plants with many purposes. You can start by taking stock of your current landscaping and noting the different areas and plantings and their needs. The picture on the left demonstrates an initial landscape map. If you want to get started on your own initial landscape map, you can ask yourself, what are the characteristics of my yard? Meaning, what are the light conditions? What structures are there? And what kind of soil do I have? What are the characteristics of the trees and plants that are already there? And then map those out on paper, and you can begin matching site conditions and plant material. You can make a map like the one on the right that helps you plan for how you can use each area in your landscape. This is a key to wise water use in a landscape. By taking time to map your site, learning about your soil, and researching the cultural requirements of the plants and trees you want and that you want to add, you can make efficient combinations that require less water and help you meet the goals of your landscape. Next slide, please. If you plan to add trees to your landscape, you should ask, what is the purpose of the tree that I'm planting? There are a lot of reasons that people plant trees in their landscapes. Commonly, reasons include providing shade to cool off parts of your landscape, or to add beauty through flowering trees or plants. Also, well-placed trees can help with water quality by assisting the slowdown of soil erosion and absorbing stormwater. Sometimes people want to add wildlife habitat for birds or squirrels. And trees can even be used to act as a screen for an unpleasant view or just to provide some privacy. Another question to ask before planting a tree is, what tree will best satisfy your reason for planting? And is it suitable to the site that it's going to be planted in? In other words, you need to plant the right tree in the right place. The earlier site factors you determined on your map are important to consider when you're selecting your tree species. Too often, the amount of space a tree needs, both above ground and below the ground, for the growth of branches and roots isn't fully considered or understood by homeowners. When you're planting a tree, you should know the mature height and width of that tree. And then you need to imagine what the tree is going to look like when it matures in your landscape, and look for any potential problems that you might have with structures or utility lines or other plantings nearby. The most often misunderstood part is the need for the space of proper rooting of the mature trees. On the left is how most people imagine tree roots look. We think of them as sort of a mirror image of the trunk and limbs of the tree, which would make the roots quite deep and make them stop kind of right around the outside of the canopy drip line. But in reality, the figure on the right is a more realistic view of the tree's roots. Most roots are relatively shallow, and the roots extend well past the canopy drip line. So how can we take care of our landscapes while making room for other landscape features? Trees change significantly over their lifespan, and the changes they experience affect other parts of the landscape. Being aware of those changes can help you plan and adapt across the tree's lifespan in your landscape. It's important to incorporate these management practices as trees mature in the landscape. Among some best practices is mulching. It is the least expensive and most beneficial maintenance activity that you can do for your trees. The benefits of mulching include improving the appearance of the area around the tree, providing weed control, reducing soil erosion and conserving moisture, insulating the soil, and protecting the trunk and surface roots from mechanical damage. The mulch area should cover as much of the root system as is practical, and ideally it would go well beyond the drip line of the tree. It should increase as the tree grows. Whenever possible, trees should be mulched in groups to help provide a shared mulch and rooting area. And organic mulches should be applied from 4 to 6 inches deep and not be placed against the trunk of the tree. Next slide, please. Watering, especially in the first 2 years after a tree is planted, is essential to a maintenance program. Trees that don't get enough water during the first few years of establishment have an increased risk for dieback, development of weak trunks, and an increased likelihood of death. The best method to water a tree is to use soaker hoses or drip irrigation. This applies water directly to the root zone without a large loss of water to evapotranspiration. Usually 1 or 2 inches of water a week is enough to stimulate good growth. Some factors that could increase or reduce the need for water include the type of soil, the temperatures outside, and the recent weather conditions. The best place to water trees is along the drip line. Most of the feeder and absorption roots are away from the tree, and the drip line is a good location to apply water for absorption roots. The best time to water is at night between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. because during this time, there's less transpiration going on and the tree can take the water up more effectively. Trees may need pruning to improve and maintain their health, increase airflow around them or light infiltration, sometimes to eliminate and reduce risks, such as limbs falling and interference with utility lines or vehicles. And sometimes people just want to prune to enhance the appearance of their trees. Not all trees will need pruning, but if they do, it's best to do corrective pruning when they are young. And the time of year to prune depends on why you're pruning. Removing dead wood and hazardous branches or pruning for disease and pest control can be done at any time. Pruning for other purposes should be planned according to the season. Winter is the best time to prune for most hardwoods, except for those trees that flower in the spring. Branch removal is easier during dormancy because the structure of the tree is more visible and the physiological activity of the tree is at its lowest. Spring is the primary growth and flowering period for a lot of trees. So to maximize flowering and fruiting, trees that bloom in spring like dogwoods and magnolias should be pruned soon after the flowers have faded. Summer pruning can be done to remove limbs that are causing hazards, diseased leaves and limbs, and storm or construction damage. Corrective pruning may also be done to prevent future problems. Summer pruning may also slow the growth of a tree since it reduces the leaf area of the tree. And we tell people not to prune in fall if you can avoid it, because this is the time of year when the tree needs to conserve energy for the dormant period, and it's pulling back resources from the leaves as it goes dormant. As trees mature in the landscape, they begin to cast more shade and their roots begin to spread through the landscape. It's normal. They will compete with other plants, including turf, for sunlight, water, and nutrients. And they may cause you to have to make adjustments in your landscape. Some adjustments you might consider are limbing trees up to increase light infiltration underneath them, to add mulch out beyond the drip line of trees, and to plan to increase the mulch area as the tree grows further. If you can account for the growth and maturity of trees in your landscape plan, you can make choices that help tie the landscape together and give you useful areas of shade, turf, and color while helping you to balance your water needs. Trees are living things. They have a lifespan and they will eventually die. If a tree is declining, poses a hazard, or is diseased, it's time to consider removing it. Removing a tree is going to affect light conditions, and it can affect the other plantings around the tree that may have relied on it for shade. This can result in the opportunity to add a new tree or an entirely different component to your landscape. With that, I'm going to pass the presentation to Clint Waltz, our turf specialist.